So let's actually get started here. So what we're going to do, we're going to work on the box model. So I do have my boilerplate, so let me just drag this into brackets at this moment. Alright, so the first thing that we're actually going to do, we actually need to create a wrapper. So with that being said, let's come in and let's say div id equals wrapper. Alright. So remember, this is just wrapping our content. Now we need to give it rules. So over here in the CSS, I need to say hashtag. Remember, a hashtag goes before anything as far as an ID. And then we say wrapper name, and we give it two rules. The first one is a max width, all right? And we know that is 960 pixels. We need to keep it that way. And then next we say margin, and we give it 0 auto. So remember, this is just going to move our content to the center, and this is going to restrain our width to 960 pixels. So it can be anything under 960, it just can't go over that. Alright, now if you remember this from class, and this is literally just the things that we've done from class, so you should know what a header is. Remember, this goes at the top of every page. So in my CSS, I'm going to write header, and we're going to give it some rules. Now whenever you're taking up space parameters, you have to give it two things. You have to give it a width, but also you have to actually give it a height. So the first thing I'm going to do is just give it a width, and I can make it anything under 960 or 960 itself. I just can't go above. So I can say 960 pixels, and I can also say height. And usually headers aren't too big, so I'll just say 150 pixels. And we don't have any content. We're not actually focused on putting content inside these parts, but what I'm going to do is let's just give it a background color so we can actually see it. And we can say, I can say 2. Alright, so if I hit save here, I should see a header. There we go. It's kind of big, but it's fine for now. Alright, now next what I'm actually going to do is create a separate part, and we can use a div. We should know what a div is. A div is literally just dividing our page into different parts. And I'm just going to call this second. Spelled second wrong. Alright. Now, let's say for instance you're coding for your portfolio. Literally this would just be, you could say this was portfolio content. You could say portfolio content. It really does not matter at that point. Alright. So the next thing that I'm actually going to do is, let me go in and write rules. So I'm going to say second, and I'm going to give this a width of 960 pixels and a height. Let's just say a height of 300 pixels. And yes, I am just pulling these numbers out as far as height is concerned. Width, I do want those to be consistent. And let's just write a background color here. And I'll just say, I'll use a hex code. So remember, a hex code, we can use a hex code, and it's a 6-digit letter number combination. We just write a hashtag before it. So let's just say I say EEE123. I should see a color yellow. There we go, or goldish kind of. Now, these are really close together, so what I can actually do is bring this down. And remember, we can move anything with margin. The only thing is that it's sort of opposite. So if I want to move it down, I need to say margin top. So it would be the same if I said margin left, it would be moving to the right. So it's opposite. So if I say margin, and I say top, I'll just move it down 15 pixels. So this should, if I live preview this, we should see that this is pushed down. Wonderful. So let's go in and create us a third div. So, and it's important not to get these divs mixed up. So you can see that this one goes to the header and this one goes to my second. They need to stay that way. So let's create a div ID equals, and we'll just call this one third. Like I said, this should just be a review. I'm just trying to refresh your memory here. Let's come over here and let's say hashtag third. And we'll give it a width of 960 pixels and also a height let's make this one a little bit bigger, so I'll say 350 pixels. And let's write a background color. Now remember, with this I can use RGB also. So if I want to say RGB, red, green, blue, RGB, then put my parentheses. Now remember, RGB colors go from 0 to 255. So literally I could say, let's just say 232, 15, 19. I don't know what color that's going to be, but we'll see. So it's a red. Alright, that works. Let's hit save. And there we go. And we're going to do the same thing, push it down. So that is just a margin top. Alright, I can say 15 pixels at this point. So this should be a review for you, because we have covered this in class. Like I said, I don't want these videos to substitute for coming to class. You know, this is just to serve as a refresher. That's why I'm kind of moving rather swiftly here. Alright, the next thing is, if you remember from class, we had 3 boxes going side by side. So they were kind of going, it was 3, and they were a little bit smaller. Now we know we want 3 boxes here. This is just 1 box. So we have to recognize how much space we have. We have only 960 pixels, so that means all 3 of my boxes cannot exceed 960 pixels, and any margin that I add has to be accounted for. Alright, so I need to make sure that I do that. So let's take a look. Now I'm going to use a section tag for this. I could use a div if I wanted to, but section is fine. And I know I want 3, so let me just copy and paste these. So I have 3 sections. Let me hit enter a couple times. Alright. So 1 section, 2 section, 3 sections. So let's come over to the CSS and let's code for this. So what I'm going to do is just say section. It doesn't have a class on ID, so I don't need a period or a hashtag. And I'm going to give it a width of, let's say, 300 pixels. Now remember, this is coding for each one of these simply because I'm writing it for all sections. Alright, so what I'm saying is I want the width of each section to be 300 pixels. And let's give it a height. I'll just say something like 200 pixels. And we should have 3 boxes. And I didn't give them a background color. Let me add that in. So let me go ahead and say background color. And I'll just do something cornflower blue. And there we go. We got 3 boxes here. Now they're not side by side. And that's because these are acting like block level items. So what we need to do is use what we call a float. So what I need to do, and we can float content to the left or to the right. So what I want to do is a float is going to allow this content to flow side by side. So since everything is typically left aligned by default, let's just move them to the left. Let's just say float and just say left. And what this float is going to do is now this content will be side by side. Alright, now these need to be spaced out. So if we do the math, we know this box is 300, 300, 300. That's 900 pixels. So in turn, I only need this box and this box to shift to the right. So what I need to do is separate these two from all the sections. And what can I do to uniquely identify this one and this one at the same time? I can use a class, because remember, class is plural. So if I come over to my second section and write class equals, I'm just going to call this boxes. Do the same here, class equals boxes. Alright. Oops. Did not mean to do that. I wrote it on the closing tag. I need to bring it down here. Class equals boxes. There we go. So now let's come over to the CSS and let's just say dot boxes. And we know we want to shift these over to the right. So we're going to say margin left. And I know I have 300 pixels, so I can add 30 pixels of margin to each one of these boxes and hit it right at 960 pixels. As we do the math, 300 plus 300 plus 300 is 900, and then 30 plus 30 is 60, equaling 960 pixels. And there we go. And we can shift these down again using margin top. I should say 15 pixels like the rest of them. Alright, now the problem is going to come, oops, if we look back, you'll see the mistake that I made here. What I did was I added it to the dot boxes, which is the class, so it only added it to these here. So that's not what I need to do. So I need to take this margin top out of the boxes and add it to my section. So now if I say margin top 15 pixels, it's going to add it to all three of these, which is exactly what I actually want. Alright, so this is working perfectly. Alright, so let's add a footer at the bottom of this. Now remember a footer? You should know this from class, but it goes at the bottom of every page. Let's write some rules for that footer. So let's give it a width, say 960 pixels, and then let's give it a height of, let's say, 120 pixels, and a background color so we can see it. I don't care what color it is, we'll say crimson. Alright, great. Now let's take a look and see what happens here. Alright, we can see that my footer is stuck right here. It's not what we want. So what's happening is the footer does not recognize that there is a float. So what we need to do is tell it, hey, you need to clear past these floats. So literally I just write clear, and we say both. So what we're saying is clear both of these floats, or really all three of them, and it should work. There we go. Now, we're going to run into another problem. I'm going to add a margin top to push this down. And what you'll notice is this will not push down. Alright, and the reason is this is just another problem that a float causes. So what we need to do is tell this footer to act like an inline and a block level element, and this will do the trick. And the way that we do that is by writing a display tag. Alright, and we're going to tell you, hey, act inline and block at the same time. So what this is going to do now is shift this down. And there we go. So we have pretty much built out a site very fast and quickly, just using the basic box model, just using width, height, and margin, just shifting things down. We didn't have any content, but this is starting to be a layout at this point. And you can be diverse with your layout. You don't have to choose, make everything 960 or 300 pixels like I did. You can make your site diverse. It's up to you, but that's the end of this tutorial. So I hope that this is a nice refresher for you. All right.